Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the show where we break down the stories everyone's talking about and explore why they matter. Today, we're zeroing in on a name that, well, it's been remarkably persistent in headlines throughout 2025, Donna Adelson. Now, for many of you following legal news, that name will undoubtedly resonate. It's not a news story exactly. It's more like a compelling reemergence of a decade-old, really quite haunting legal saga, one that has steadily refused to fade from public consciousness. Donna Adelson is right at the nexus of the infamous 2014 murder of Florida State law professor Dan Markel. It was a case that absolutely shocked the academic community at the time and, well, it quickly unspooled into this narrative just fraught with unexpected twists. Her recent arrest and the ongoing courtroom proceedings happening now in 2025, they haven't just revived this story, they propelled it back into sharp public focus. It's urging us really to take a fresh and critical look at the intricate and frankly unsettling alleged layers of family involvement. So, our aim today is to meticulously unpack the precise details of this enduring case. We want to delve into the public's sustained fascination with it and critically consider what it ultimately reveals about the darker, sometimes profoundly unsettling aspects of human and family dynamics. Let's begin this exploration. Okay, so to truly understand why Donna Adelson's name keeps trending, we really need to rewind. Back to July 18, 2014. That was the day of the brutal murder of Dan Markel. He was, a highly respected, very accomplished law professor at Florida State University, and he was shot in his own driveway in Tallahassee, Florida. Can you just imagine the sheer shock and horror that must have rippled through that seemingly quiet academic community, seeing such a public, targeted act of violence directed at one of its own?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just a local tragedy either. It sent tremors across the legal world. Everyone was grappling with this immediate, profound question. Who on earth would want to kill Dan Markel? And why? From an investigative standpoint, those early days, the initial phase, it presented a really perplexing puzzle. Here you had this prominent figure, a law professor. His life, on the surface anyway, appeared orderly. No obvious enemies.
Right, not someone you'd expect to be targeted like that.
Exactly. So this created an immediate mystery around both the motive and, of course, the perpetrators. Law enforcement found themselves casting an exceptionally wide net, meticulously collecting every shred of evidence, witness statements, digital footprints, everything. But what began as this seemingly isolated act of violence, well, it soon revealed itself, through painstaking detective work, to be anything but. Well, this deliberate, targeted execution in broad daylight, that signals something far more complex, something premeditated, not an opportunistic crime. It forced investigators to consider possibilities that extended way beyond typical criminal motivations. And that methodical approach taken in those early days was absolutely crucial. It laid the groundwork for the extraordinary, really decade-long journey this case would take.
And as that investigation painstakingly progressed, that initial wide net, it started to tighten, didn't it? Gradually pulling focus towards a really unexpected, and I think for many, a deeply unsettling direction, the Adelson family.
That's right. The pivotal investigative theory that emerged, the one that profoundly impacted the case's trajectory, alleged that Dan Markel's murder was intrinsically tied to a bitter, really acrimonious custody battle, a battle between him and his ex-wife, Wendy Adelson.
Who is Donna Adelson's daughter.
Precisely. And when this theory first surfaced, you have to remember, it was met with a lot of disbelief. I mean, given the professional status, the affluent background of the individuals involved.
It seemed almost unbelievable.
It was a jarring revelation. It fundamentally shifted public perception of the entire narrative. And it's compelling, isn't it, how rapidly the narrative around this case evolved. From, a mysterious, maybe random act to this highly personal alleged family conspiracy.
Definitely. But custody disputes happen all the time, sadly. What made investigators think this one escalated so drastically?
That's a key point. While custody disputes are regrettably common and often emotionally charged, the alleged animosity within this particular dispute, well, as detailed by court documents and testimony, it reached an extreme level. Investigators believed it was, frankly, unprecedented. This wasn't just a contentious separation.
It was more than that.
Sources indicate a profound breakdown in communication and an alleged deep-seated resentment, particularly from the Adelson family side. Resentment regarding Dan Markel's custody arrangements and his perceived control over Wendy's life and her geographical location, where she could live.
The location issue. That becomes central, doesn't it?
It really does. This perceived depth of animosity became central to the investigators' theory that this intensely personal conflict allegedly escalated into a murder-for-hire plot. It just paints a chilling picture, doesn't it? How familial grievances, if left unchecked, allowed to fester, they can allegedly lead to a complete abandonment of legal and moral boundaries, all in the pursuit of a desired outcome. essentially transforming a family dispute into a criminal enterprise.
And the specific motive alleged, it's almost as disturbing as the act itself. The prosecution alleges the murder was orchestrated simply to facilitate Wendy Adelson's desire to move herself and her children closer to her family in South Florida.
A move Dan Markel had opposed legally.
Right. So what was fundamentally a legal and personal challenge, this dispute over relocation and custody, was allegedly seen as this insurmountable obstacle. An obstacle that demanded a drastic, irreversible, and ultimately deadly solution.
The sheer alleged audacity of planning a murder to resolve the family court issue. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the level of alleged desperation and that intense familial desire to keep loved ones geographically close, seemingly at any cost.
It underscores a mindset where perceived personal comfort and convenience tragically outweighed a human life. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. And it begs the question, how could such a deeply personal, often emotionally charged desire for geographical proximity or maybe perceived control over a family situation, how could that allegedly become so paramount, so important that it leads to the consideration and then the execution of a violent crime?
Testimonies and evidence presented in court seem to point towards a very specific family dynamic, right?
Yes, they've painted a picture of a dynamic where Wendy's happiness and her proximity to her parents, Donna and Harvey Adelson, were just intensely prioritized, maybe above all else. The prosecution's theory relies heavily on this assertion that the Markel-Adelson custody battle wasn't just contentious, it became an alleged driving force, the driving force behind a criminal conspiracy designed specifically to permanently remove Dan Markel from the equation.
A stark and unsettling illustration.
It is, of how deeply rooted personal grievances combined with maybe an alleged sense of entitlement or injustice can spiral into this tragic and unlawful quest for a perceived solution. This element of the alleged motive really offers a troubling look into the potential for familial bonds to become a catalyst for profound darkness.
So this elaborate alleged conspiracy, it didn't unravel quickly. It took years. It led to several arrests and, significantly, the conviction of Charlie Adelson, Donna's son, back in 2023.
That was a major turning point.
Absolutely. Charlie's role, as established by the courts, was central to the alleged plot. He was found guilty of orchestrating the hit. He became the crucial link, according to the prosecution, connecting the direct perpetrators, the alleged hitmen, to the Adelson family, who were at the very heart of that custody dispute.
His conviction, after a lengthy trial featuring some really compelling testimony and evidence, marked a monumental development. Especially in a case that had already been ongoing for nearly a decade, it felt like a significant breakthrough in the pursuit of justice.
So Charlie's conviction wasn't just an endpoint for him, was it? It had wider implications.
Oh, definitely. Far more than just the end of one chapter. It was a powerful legal precedent that profoundly influenced the broader progression of this case. A conviction of that magnitude, particularly against a direct family member like a son, well, it naturally energized investigators.
It gave them renewed focus.
Exactly. Renewed intensity and determination to scrutinize others potentially involved in the alleged plot. It solidified the theory, at least in the eyes of the prosecution, that this was indeed a meticulously planned conspiracy, not just some isolated act by Charlie.
So it opened the door to further charges.
It provided a clearer pathway for prosecutors to pursue charges against other alleged co-conspirators, especially those within the immediate family. It was based on the established framework of this larger coordinated scheme. It basically signaled that the net was widening.
And that those believed to be involved, even indirectly, were now squarely in the sights of the law.
Right. That development truly marked a turning point. It indicated that the alleged architects of this crime would face increasing scrutiny.
Which brings us pretty much directly to the present, or at least the ongoing legal developments that have kept this case so prominent throughout 2025. Donna Adelson herself was arrested in November 2023, attempting to flee the country, actually.
Yes, at the airport, a dramatic turn.
And subsequently charged as a co-conspirator in Dan Markel's murder. Her case, particularly the protracted and highly scrutinized courtroom proceedings happening now, that's what's kept her name consistently in the headlines. It keeps the public's attention firmly fixed on these developments.
It really does. And it serves as a stark reminder, doesn't it, that the wheels of justice, while sometimes turning incredibly slowly, can eventually lead to accountability, even many years after the initial crime.
The sheer longevity of this pursuit highlights an unwavering commitment, it seems, to resolving this complex case.
The specific allegations against Donna Adelson are extraordinarily severe. They paint a picture of alleged deep involvement.
Not just knowing, but doing.
According to the prosecution, yes. Involvement in both the planning and the financing of the crime. This wasn't allegedly merely a case of being aware of the plot. It suggests alleged active participation in orchestrating the murder. Evidence purportedly indicates her role in conceptualizing, facilitating, and even funding the assassination.
Wow, so the legal weight of those co-conspirator charges is substantial.
Immense. It implies a level of alleged culpability that goes far beyond mere association or passive knowledge. For the prosecution, securing a conviction against Donna Adelson would represent a critical step, a step towards fully delineating the alleged scope and membership of this conspiracy. It could potentially shed light on every alleged facet of its inception and execution, maybe bringing the full alleged truth of this family's involvement to light.
Okay, so given the gravity of these allegations, the critical question becomes, what exactly is the evidence? What forms the foundation for these serious charges against Donna Adelson? Court documents and testimonies from previous trials, particularly Charlie's, have cited several types of compelling evidence, right? Meticulously gathered over a decade.
That's correct. Evidence that allegedly points directly towards her involvement.
And these are the details that have truly gripped the public imagination, I think, turning the case into this compelling, real-life legal drama.
Yeah, absolutely. And a striking element of the evidence presented against the Adelson family, and now specifically Donna, involves intercepted communications.
Wiretaps, things like that.
Yes. These aren't just casual conversations. They're recordings obtained through court-ordered wiretaps and other sophisticated surveillance techniques. Law enforcement carefully monitored the communications of the alleged conspirators.
But these calls aren't always straightforward, are they? No smoking gun confessions, usually.
Rarely. That's the challenging yet ultimately compelling aspect of interpreting these calls. They often don't contain explicit, undeniable confessions. Instead, prosecutors allege they reveal veiled or coded conversations, discussions laced with euphemisms about the problem or the issue, or maybe financial transactions that, well, when you place them in the larger context of the alleged plot, they take on a much more sinister meaning.
Like the infamous TV you reference? Or was it speakers?
Allegedly code for the cost of the hit, yes. The prosecution's task is to methodically present these seemingly innocuous phrases and demonstrate to the jury how, within the framework of the alleged conspiracy, they clearly referred to the planning and execution of Dan Markel's murder. For instance, alleged discussions about payments sometimes referred to using code words.
And the defense argues.
Of course, defense teams attempt to argue these are just innocent conversations taken completely out of context. But the sheer volume and the contextual relevance, as alleged by the state, can be formidable evidence.
Beyond those intercepted phone calls, we've also heard a lot about undercover recordings, which always sound like something from a spy movie.
They do have that quality, but they can be incredibly potent tools in the courtroom. They offer a direct window, potentially, into alleged conspiracies.
How did those typically come about?
Usually they stem from carefully orchestrated scenarios, often involving informants or undercover agents who engage alleged co-conspirators in conversation while secretly recording them. In this case, reports indicate the FBI utilized an informant someone already implicated in the murder, like Luis Rivera, to elicit crucial details from, for example, Charlie Adelson.
Trying to get them to talk freely.
Exactly. Such operations are designed to capture raw, unfiltered dialogue, sometimes even outright confessions or highly incriminating statements that would otherwise never be spoken openly. The directness and authenticity of these recordings, when played in court, can be incredibly impactful.
We saw that in Charlie Adelson's trial, didn't we?
Yes, recordings were absolutely central to demonstrating his alleged role in arranging the murder for hire. They captured his alleged discussions about the plot and the payments involved. Now, for Donna Adelson's case, similar types of recordings are being used. The prosecution aims to show her alleged knowledge, her approval, and perhaps even active participation in the scheme, allegedly revealing her understanding of the coded language and her alleged direct involvement in the plan itself.
So these pieces of evidence provide an internal perspective on the alleged conspiracy's workings.
A perspective that is often very difficult for the defense to effectively counter. It's powerful stuff.
And it's not just the direct content of these conversations, but the very way they talked, right? The use of euphemisms, indirect language, these coded conversations to discuss something as grave as a murder plot. How do investigators manage to unravel that? How do they convince a jury that the problem or the TV wasn't just a TV?
It's a painstaking process. It requires a really deep understanding of the alleged conspirators' communication patterns, their relationships, the whole context. Investigators, often working with linguistic experts, essentially act like forensic detectives of language.
Analyzing patterns.
Exactly. They analyze recurring phrases, specific terms, even subtle shifts in tone or subject matter during critical conversations. The goal is to demonstrate a consistent pattern where certain seemingly innocent words or phrases were, in fact, consistently used as code for specific aspects of the alleged murder plot.
Whether it was the act itself, the payment.
Or simply removing Dan Markel as an obstacle. Yes, it involves building a robust narrative around these veiled messages, and crucially, presenting corroborating evidence from other sources like financial records showing large cash withdrawals or surveillance data to show the court that despite the lack of explicit language, the underlying meaning of the alleged plot was unmistakably understood and acted upon by the alleged co-conspirators.
It's about proving intent and shared knowledge through inference.
Precisely. A sophisticated challenge for both the prosecution and the defense, make no mistake.
And finally, there's surveillance details, presumably chronicling movements, meetings, interactions that must also weave into this intricate tapestry of evidence.
Absolutely. Sustained surveillance provides the vital contextual backbone to the other forms of evidence. It's really about meticulously documenting the alleged coordination and movements of those involved. It paints a physical timeline of the conspiracy.
Like who met whom and when.
For instance, surveillance might have captured alleged meetings between family members and the purported hitmen, or documented travel patterns that align suspiciously with the alleged planning or execution phases of the crime. While surveillance alone might not be the smoking gun, it corroborates other evidence. It establishes physical proximity, demonstrates alleged coordinated efforts, and provides a clearer picture of the logistics involved.
It helps show how they allegedly communicated, where they met,
and what their movements were leading up to and immediately after the crime. It reinforces the idea that this was not some spontaneous act, but rather a planned, organized effort. So collectively, this body of evidence from the allegedly deciphered coded calls, the undercover recordings, the linguistic analysis of euphemisms, and the detailed surveillance reports, this is what has sustained this investigation for over a decade, and led to these recent developments, continuing to grip the public as each piece of this alleged puzzle slowly comes to light.
Okay, so we've thoroughly walked through the facts of the case, the timeline, the alleged evidence. But here's where the discussion really widens, I think, into a broader cultural phenomenon. The public's reaction. This isn't merely a legal case making news headlines. It has firmly cemented its place as one of the most intensely discussed stories within U.S. true crime circles for a full decade now.
It really has.
People have dissected every single angle. So what is it about these cases? Cases where family loyalty reportedly crosses into criminal acts, sometimes dubbed family crime dynasties online. What generates such an enduring and profound fascination?
It's remarkably compelling to observe the psychological magnetism of these kinds of stories. I mean, they directly challenge our most fundamental societal understanding of morality and loyalty, don't they?
How so?
Well, family is universally perceived as a sanctuary, right? A bedrock of unconditional love and support. So when that foundation is allegedly shattered by an act of extreme violence, particularly one purportedly orchestrated by other family members, it just profoundly blurs our moral lines.
It hits differently than a stranger-on-stranger crime.
Exactly. These cases offer a chilling glimpse into the alleged darkness that can exist within seemingly ordinary, even affluent families. They force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that the people we inherently trust the most, our closest kin, might be capable of the unthinkable. The inherent drama and tragedy of these narratives, the profound alleged betrayal of societal norms, the alleged manipulation of fundamental bonds of affection, it all converges to captivate audiences.
We're drawn into trying to understand it.
Yes, drawn into a compelling, if disturbing, exploration of human nature at its most extreme. We're seeking to comprehend how such a perceived perversion of family values could possibly occur.
And these complex stories, they don't just flicker briefly in traditional news cycles anymore, do they? Especially the Dan Markel case. It's been kept perpetually alive under intense scrutiny for a full decade by this expansive world of true crime media.
That's a huge factor.
We're talking dedicated podcasts, meticulously re-examining evidence, YouTube channels dissecting every nuance of court proceedings, and vast Reddit threads where thousands of people engage in their own form of, citizen investigation.
This truly highlights the evolving and significant role of true crime communities in today's media landscape. These aren't just passive consumers of information anymore.
They're active participants.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They effectively function as informal, collective investigative bodies. These highly dedicated communities don't just absorb the details, they actively participate. They deconstruct every piece of evidence, they cross-reference public records, they engage in vigorous debates over theories.
Which fosters this prolonged engagement.
Precisely. An engagement that traditional media alone couldn't possibly sustain over 10 years. There's a powerful sense of collective problem-solving, a shared intellectual pursuit that draws people to these platforms. Individuals feel they're contributing to understanding or maybe even influencing the pursuit of justice. They often identify perceived inconsistencies or overlook details.
It creates this dynamic feedback loop.
It does. A loop that keeps the case perpetually alive and under intense scrutiny in the public consciousness. It's essentially crowdsourcing the investigative process in a way.
And within those vibrant online spaces, particularly concerning Donna Adelson's alleged role, several core theories have really taken hold, haven't they? They fuel so much of the continuous discussion. And it's crucial, I think, to underscore again, these are public theories and interpretations circulating online. They are not legally proven conclusions,
Vitally important distinction.
but they absolutely drive the ongoing conversation and the fascination.
And looking at the broader picture of that public discourse, these online debates really illuminate the complex and often conflicting ways we attempt to understand alleged culpability, especially within family structures. One dominant theory, frequently referred to online as the mastermind theory, basically posits that Donna Adelson was the primary orchestrator of the crime.
The one pulling the strings.
That's the perspective. It suggests she acted out of an intense, perhaps even pathological loyalty to her daughter Wendy, and a powerful, all-consuming desire to keep her family geographically close and intact, free from Dan Markel's perceived interference.
The implications of that are huge. A parent allegedly taking such extreme, calculated measures for familial control.
Profound implications. It challenges our perceptions of maternal love and its potential for, well, destructive overreach. It paints a picture of a calculating, strategic figure, allegedly driven by an unwavering, albeit deeply twisted, devotion.
And supporters of that theory often point to.
Often point to her alleged financial control within the family, her purported strong personality, things like that, as circumstantial indicators.
Yet there's a compelling counter-narrative often discussed too, isn't there? This idea of a protective parent. Someone who might have been manipulated or maybe acted out of a misguided extreme sense of duty rather than being the principal architect herself.
Precisely. Counterbalancing the mastermind theory is what some online commentators term the protective parent theory. This view speculates that while Donna may well have been complicit, she might have been manipulated or unduly influenced by her son, Charlie, who, remember, was convicted earlier.
Or perhaps acted out of desperation.
Or alternatively, it suggests her actions stemmed from an overzealous, perhaps desperate, maternal instinct to protect her child, Wendy, even if it meant crossing severe moral and legal boundaries. Now, this theory doesn't necessarily absolve her of alleged involvement, but it seeks to contextualize it within a different framework of motivation.
So less calculating evil, more.
Perhaps less as a calculating architect of evil, and more as someone who maybe succumbed to immense family pressure and an overwhelming, albeit misguided, desire to safeguard her offspring, regardless of the ethical cost or the legal consequences.
So these two theories represent starkly different interpretations of the same alleged actions.
Exactly. And in doing so, they reflect broader societal views on family roles, maternal responsibility, and the potential for a parent's protective instincts to be tragically perverted into criminal acts.
And it is precisely that ambiguity, isn't it? That fertile ground for differing interpretations and conflicting narratives. That's what so powerfully fuels these ongoing online discussions.
It seems to be.
It's what contributes to the case's viral endurance. It allows people to project their own understanding of family dynamics, power structures, human nature onto this unfolding tragedy, creating this continuously evolving and deeply personal engagement with the case. So after a decade of these agonizing twists and turns, and now Donna Adelson's ongoing, highly publicized courtroom proceedings in 2025, we are compelled to ask why. Why has this specific case captivated people for such an incredibly extended period? It's profoundly transcended typical news cycles. It remains this persistent, almost obsessive topic of conversation.
It really does stand out.
We've witnessed countless true crime stories emerge and then fade. But the unexpected alleged involvement of a seemingly respectable, affluent family in such a brutal, calculated crime, it just seems to burrow deep into our collective consciousness and refuse to let go.
It's genuinely compelling to consider the longevity of public interest here, and I believe it stems from a confluence of factors, really. First, as we've discussed, the case presents an incredibly complex web of familial and relational dynamics. It's not just a single perpetrator and victim.
It's an alleged family affair,
which instantly adds layers of intrigue, alleged betrayal, and almost a Shakespearean-like drama. Then there's the slow, almost agonizingly deliberate pace of justice itself.
It wasn't solved quickly.
Not at all. This isn't a case that was solved overnight with a quick arrest. It has been a constant drip feed of new evidence, new arrests, continuous legal developments over many, many years. This gradual, incremental unfolding transforms the case into a persistent, real-life puzzle, and people are inherently driven to see that puzzle solved.
You get invested.
Deeply invested in understanding how all the pieces connect. Eager for the full, alleged truth to finally emerge, it taps into a deep human desire for resolution and comprehension, especially in the face of what feels inherently inexplicable and deeply unsettling.
Stepping back for a moment, then, this case truly throws into stark relief some fundamental and, frankly, deeply uncomfortable human experiences, doesn't it? What, in your view, does this case ultimately reveal about broader universal themes? Things like family loyalty, desperation, the very boundaries of morality?
Well, it offers a profound and often disturbing window into the powerful and sometimes utterly destructive forces of family loyalty. The alleged actions within this case illustrate how the desire to protect one's own, to ensure their well-being, their happiness, or even just their geographical proximity, how that can allegedly lead individuals to extreme, profoundly immoral, and criminal actions.
It forces us to confront the boundaries of that loyalty.
Absolutely. How far is too far? At what point does a protective instinct, which is initially rooted in love, cross a fundamental line into alleged criminality and violence? It's a really sobering examination of how deeply ingrained family bonds, which we typically view as an undeniable source of strength and support, how they can allegedly be perverted into a motive for calculated violence, revealing a darker, more primitive side of human attachment, perhaps.
And that element of desperation, particularly as it allegedly arose from that bitter custody battle, it feels almost universally understandable on some level, even if the alleged response is absolutely abhorrent and completely beyond comprehension.
Indeed. The case also sheds a harsh light on the alleged depths of desperation that a bitter custody battle, combined with intense familial pressures and alleged perceived injustices, might drive individuals to. It compels us to question the perceived stakes in such personal conflicts, particularly when things like status, wealth, and ego become intertwined with these raw emotional battles over children.
While the alleged response, murder for hire, is unequivocally heinous.
Unquestionably. But the underlying feeling of being trapped, powerless, or unfairly treated in a legal or emotional battle, that is, regrettably, something many people can conceptually relate to, even if they cannot fathom the extreme reaction. It forces us to examine what it truly means for individuals to perceive that there are no other options left, and how that perceived lack of alternatives can allegedly lead to extreme, tragic, and irreversible choices, demonstrating the fragility of ethical reasoning under extreme duress.
And ultimately, the alleged actions in this case, they deeply challenge our conventional notions of morality itself, don't they? It feels like a fundamental questioning of what we even understand to be right and wrong.
Absolutely. The alleged actions of the Adelson family challenge conventional notions of morality in a truly profound way. It deliberately blurs the lines between right and wrong when viewed through the lens of extreme familial protection and self-interest. When individuals allegedly commit such a calculated act, purportedly for the benefit of their child or their perceived family unit, well, it forces society to grapple with the complex, uncomfortable nuances of human motivation.
It's not simple.
It's not just a simple, clear-cut case of good versus evil. It's a deep, unsettling look at how love, loyalty, desperation, and a perceived threat to one's familial structure can allegedly twist moral compasses, leading to a profound reevaluation of ethical boundaries and exposing the darker potential within human nature when extreme pressures are applied.
So, zooming out even further then, what does the sustained, intense cultural obsession with the Dan Markel case, and countless others like it, what does it truly reveal about society's collective psyche when it comes to true crime as a genre?
More broadly, I think true crime serves a purpose that extends far beyond mere entertainment, though it is often consumed that way. It functions as a kind of societal exploration.
An exploration of what?
Of justice, of human evil, and of our collective, often unfulfilled, search for answers in the face of the inexplicable and the horrifying. These cases, like the Markel murder, transform into a shared narrative, a collective puzzle, one that offers us a vicarious engagement with profound ethical dilemmas without having to experience them directly.
We're drawn to understand the why.
Intrinsically drawn, yes. Why do people commit such unfathomable acts? How is justice pursued? What did these events say about the darker, more chaotic corners of our world? It allows us as a society to process complex emotions, maybe to reinforce our own moral codes, and perhaps in a strange, almost ritualistic way, to feel a sense of control or understanding over the chaotic and often terrifying aspects of human behavior.
A collective grappling with the fragility of life.
And the stark, often brutal realities of crime and punishment, all played out on a very public stage.
And that leads us directly to our final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. Building on this intricate discussion we've had today, Considering the powerful, sometimes destructively intense forces of family loyalty, what boundaries, if any, should we understand to exist when protecting those we love? And how might our deepest affections inadvertently lead to unforeseen and tragic consequences? Thank you for joining us on this exploration into the intricate layers of the Dan Markel case and the ongoing legal developments surrounding Donna Adelson. It's certainly a story that continues to challenge your understanding of family, loyalty, and the complex pursuit of justice. Next time on Trending Unpacked, we'll move from courtrooms to medicine, unpacking the rise of kissing bug disease and why it's suddenly becoming a global health concern. Until then, stay curious.